I'm Dana Han-Klein here with Joshua Weinstein for Menashe.
What's an interesting fact you learned about the Hasidic community while making this film?
So it's how diverse it is. It's that there's not a communal idea of what the Hasidic community is. There's actually over 40 Hasidic groups, and every rabbi has his own opinion of the law. So one rabbi says you can't eat strawberries. One rabbi says you can't have lettuce that's not washed. That there's a portrait you can put on your wall of a rabbi that could prevent mice from coming to your house. That one rabbi said you can't have Woody Allen glasses. I mean, literally, each rabbi has their own interpretations of the law that are endlessly fascinating.
What was the reception like for you, kind of, because you shot in the community area as close to as you could get? Like, what was the reception to having you guys there? Because it's very closed.
It was almost impossible to make this film. I mean, actors would agree to be in it, then would be pressured not to come. Our producers were pressured not to make the movie. We'd lose locations. So it's all the typical fun of making a no-budget movie, but plus dealing with a population who doesn't want you to make it.
Also, so I'm assuming you don't speak Yiddish.
My Yiddish is very bad. But we would rehearse the scenes in English and block the scenes in English, and then we would, when we start filming, we had someone in another room, like the United Nations, live translating everything that was being said. So we constantly were aware, and then it became like Talmudic debates about every word, because Yiddish is a language that if you're from Hungary, it's different than if you're from Ukraine, which is different than if you're from Russia, which is different than if you live in Borough Park. So, just what words were to be used on set would take a 3-hour scene and make it a 10-hour scene to shoot.
Were you prepared for the fact that you were essentially going to have to kind of trust the emotional core of this to these people who, you'd have to trust them to translate it, right? Because you can say as much as you want to them, but like, as you said, things get lost in semantics.
No, you have to trust the translators that they're working with you on this, but also I'd made films in Mandarin and Hindi and Tagalog, so I'm used to spending hours of my day watching people. And you could tell a lot by what people were saying just by how they sound. And again, I knew basic enough Yiddish that I could get by.
Did spending that much time in a highly religious community affect your own spirituality at all?
I make humanistic films. I've made films in India, I've made films in Uganda, I've made films in Japan. And every time I go to a different society, to me it's like almost ethnography, where I'm just learning about societies. So I try not to have judgments. I try to to me it's like learning about education almost, is by making these films. So I take a little bit more intellectual approach.
How do you take care to make sure that you're not sort of stereotyping a group, that there's a voyeuristic aspect to, I think people have a certain perceptions just based on like the only things we know about them are, a lot of it has to do with like visuals, or a lot of it has to do with like, oh, we see them on the street, but we don't know a lot about them because they are a closed community. Yeah,
I think it's really just the humanization of it, that this is like a deep dive portrait about one grieving father. So it's about his experience, it's about what he would do, and we understand him as a very complex person. As you watch the film, your expectations change, your understanding of him and his world changes as well. And the sacrifices he makes for his son, something that we all can relate to. So even though this is a world that's completely alien to us in a language we don't know, people immediately feel something emotionally resonant from it.
How soon into meeting actual Menashe were you like, this is the story, like this is where I need to go with this?
Yeah, you know what? I was just blown away by his acting. He is this Charlie Chaplin-esque bear of a man, but there's also deep sadness inside him. And humor is just a way to cover up that sadness. And you couldn't but help see something in his eyes, that there was pain. And I was just blown away by him in his casting tape. So I think pretty quickly after I met him, he told me that he was a widower and that he didn't have custody of his son, and right away I knew, wow, this is the film.
You had to pivot some of the roles, right? Like, you originally had them written as one thing, then nobody was willing to take the role.
Or opposite, like it was originally supposed to be a father-in-law figure who's taking the son away, but the father-in-law quit a week or two before production. So then we cast another different brother-in-law who then quit a week before production, and then we had Yoel, who played the brother-in-law in the movie, who I loved. I mean, again, I love that Yoel, he ended up being the brother-in-law, but he was not our original pick for the role.
Was that tough for you, or did your kind of documentary life make it easier for you to deal with those types of like changes?
I got lots of gray hair. Every film is another patch that comes out.
What do you admire most about Menashe?
So, I mean, the real life Menashe First of all, he's one of the smartest, most articulate people I've met, but is completely unassuming. Like, he walks in a room and he's the kind of guy who makes you assume that he's the village clown, but really he's looking right through you and understands what's happening. So I really admire how astute he is. I also admire his humor. He's really funny. He's very witty. He comes up with all sorts of great sayings. One of my favorite was, "There's enough rabbis, now God wants to make some actors." And there's plenty more. I mean, he just literally in Yiddish, he's writing books of them. I think he has one book published. He wants to publish another book in Yiddish, just about his sayings. So he's also tenacious. I mean, he's had real struggles in his life, and the fact that he is so put together after all this pain is a testament to his spirit.
What character in the film do you think you related most to personally?
Oh, I'm the brother-in-law.
You're the brother. No, there's no hesitation for that.
Yeah. I'm someone who loves the rules.
What was the most challenging part for you about shifting from documentary to narrative fiction?
The best part and the worst part are the same thing, which is that you have to imagine exactly what you want. Well, it's wonderful that you get to create exactly what you want. Mm-hmm. That also means you have to make it exactly as you want.
Okay.
So it's a double-edged sword. A documentary, you show up with the camera, you're happy. You have someone real doing something real, and it's recorded. But in fiction, there's so many reasons why when you're filming something, it doesn't work. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel honest. And then there's just the pressure of time. I mean, there's so many things different in fiction that it's wonderful, though. But the outcome is that you can imagine something and make it real, and there's nothing like it.
What was the most fun day on set?
I liked days when we didn't have anything to do because things would fall apart, and I took Menashe and Rieven to the park. I just got to play with them in the park with the camera, because they were had such just great stage presence, and that bond between a father and son is what the whole film's about. I also actually loved shooting the last scene we shot, which was the kugel scene where Menashe asks for the recipe for kugel from his neighbor, and I originally wrote that scene as like an Abbott Costello who's on first kind of bit, and it was a little bit too slapstick. And then after we got into Sundance, actually we reshot it, and it was just great because we were in Sundance already. The whole film was cut already, and we just had one scene that magically fit right in the box in that moment, and it was you just felt good about that day on set because you just knew that we could play around, have fun, because everything else was done.
What is a rewarding part about making this film and having people see it now?
Yeah, look, no one makes a non-English film with non-actors because they think that it's going to get a big release unless people will watch it. I really did not make this film because I thought people were going to see it. I thought some people would see it. I thought, but really, it's just what I want to see. For me, I do commercials, but when I do a film like this, it's just whatever my dumbass ideas are. I just want to see them, and I'm glad that they're relating to other people now. What's
something you hope people take away from the film?
That whether you live in Bucharest or you live in Inner Mongolia, life is not too different than how you live where we are today.
Thank you so much. Congrats on the film.
Appreciate it.